Hey guys, we're hanging out in front of the United States Post Office in Redwood City, just down the street where it says e-bikes, etc. That's Motostrano, and they'll let me check out some of their CUBE bikes. This one is really cool. It's the Elly Ride Hybrid 400. CUBE calls all of their electric models hybrid because it's like human plus motor. I think you get it. This one it's just beautiful. I love it when you get kind of a niche product in the e-bike space because, you know, sort of the, unisex, like gray, whatever, mid-step, that's going to appeal to the masses. But CUBE has such a diverse lineup of bikes, and this one, I mean, it's really beautiful. It actually comes in two different colors. So we have like the blue aqua, and then there's like a mint white. Both of them seem to be appealing to like the feminine aesthetic, and this lower step-through design, really easy to approach. Swing your leg over if you're wearing a skirt or a dress. You've got a rack for utility, but there are some bikes that are just high step or even mid step where you might end up wanting to swing your leg over and you can clink your shin on that, or especially if you have a bag or something. It's just this is a much better way to approach a bike if you're someone who really wants that stability, or your outfits and stuff aren't gonna work as well on a high step. So anyway, I actually appreciate this myself because I have a knee injury and some hip discomfort at times. But on the other hand, there is a little bit more frame flex that can happen on some of the other models. This one's actually pretty good. You can see there's this gusset up here, extra fat down tube, another gusset right here, smooth lines. The welds aren't like super polished, but it's strong, and there's even two chainstays, as well as you've got a seat stay up here with an integrated rack that's paint matched. So they really did the bike justice. It's not just all about aesthetics, it rides pretty well. They've got nice upgraded tires, Schwalbe Fat Frank. These are 28-inch diameter, 700C. It's like the road bike width by 2 inches. So 2 inches, they're fat, and that gives you some comfort, some traction, and stability. You can ride this bike no hands, and it actually tracks pretty well. It's not quite as twitchy as some of the other bikes. And then for added comfort, they've got a suspension fork up here. I would call this very basic SR Suntour NEX E25, like 63 millimeters of travel, no lockout. So when you're riding, there can be a little bit of bob, especially if you stand up and pedal, but you really don't need to with an electric drive system. Also, if you slam on those brakes, your weight shifts forward and you get some dive. But, at the end of the day, it's nice that it's color matched. They were able to keep the price sort of lower with this. I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like the bike's a little expensive at $34.99. It was marked down a little bit at Motostrano, so maybe it's one of those things where they price it high and then it feels like you're getting a good deal. Regardless, it's one of the few bikes out there that comes in such beautiful colors and 4 frame sizes. I'm looking at the smaller right now, 46, so the reach is just super short. It's easy to grab those handlebars. You got your head up, you're looking around, you're not leaning forward, getting a sore back and neck. Even the stem, you can see this really high angle. That adds comfort as well. So you've got the fatter tires, the suspension fork, these tape grips with this cream color, comes through the saddle, springs on the saddle, so that gives you a little bit more vibration dampening. And then the seat post right here, this is 27.2, so it's a rigid seat post now, but you could swap this out and get like a thud buster, a body float, or a Suntour NCX. Those are all suspension seat posts that are going to give you even more comfort, almost make it like a full suspension feel. But keep in mind that's going to raise the minimum saddle height about 3 inches. So if you're someone who wants to get that super low and you're not worried about full leg extension, you just want to be comfortable, the seat post suspension might not work for you. I love that the rack is far enough back that you actually can bring the saddle pretty far down without colliding. You still got a bunch of room to work with. There's the spring latch right here. This is rack time. It's got a kind of a slide connector system. In the US, I'm mostly used to seeing like Toe Peak. They have that same slide connector of their own design, but rack time's very popular in Europe, and you can get some accessories if you're over there, and maybe we'll start seeing them over here as well. I love that they've got a pannier hanger right here, so this is extra. They already had all this tubing, but you'll notice it's a little bit fatter and it's kind of angular and stylized. This is just a round bar, and it's silver, it's not painted. So if you've got one of those pannier systems that goes click and it connects right there, first of all, it's not going to slide forward and back because of these little nubs, and it's not going to scratch up the paint as much. It's going to keep the panniers lower center of gravity, And then you've got this triangle here because of the way they angled up that secondary support arm chainstay right there. So you can connect your little clip there. A lot of them have like a bungee, or if you've got your own bungees with like a plastic end, you can clip there, bring it up and over and do like a basket or something. There are tons of options. I really appreciate that. This is the rack mount battery from Bosch, Power Pack 400. It positions some of your weight up high and towards the rear, which isn't ideal. In a perfect world, all the weight would be super low in center, but at least we've got the motor weight down there. That's like 8.8 pounds. This is 5.8 pounds compared to the mid-frame batteries from Bosch that would mount like right here. Those weigh like 5.5, 5.7 pounds. This is also Power Pack 400. Bosch has a newer one called the Power Pack 500, gives you 25% more capacity, but this is still plenty. It keeps it a little bit more affordable. I would expect something like 20 to 60 miles, especially with these smooth tires, depending on how you're riding. As long as you're not like climbing tons of steep hills and riding in the highest level of assist, you're gonna get a pretty efficient ride. So I wanted to take that off for you and just show you how it works. Notice that they're using ABUS keys. That's a really high quality locking company. And then on the back here, I'm gonna try to cover it up. There's a plus code card. So there's a code that I'm covering with my thumb, and you can use that code to get a matching lock. So you could get a folding lock, mount that right here, or you could mount a bottle cage. Just keep in mind that it's gonna be a little easier to kick when you're getting on your bike. The point is, you could use this same key to get the battery on and off and to use your lock. And I love that, because who wants extra keys in their purse or wallet? So I've unlocked it. There's a handle right here. It's really easy to pull off. Got a big sticker on top. Lift it up like that. Bosch does a great job with their batteries. There's even this little LED indicator on the side. If I press this power button, it lights up. So imagine that you use this to commute to work or school or something, and you park the bike outside like this. You bring the battery pack inside with you. You can determine whether it needs to be charged or not, and you can charge it right there at your desk. I love that. So it's slid back on. I can't get the key out until I lock it, and that's awesome. It's nice when you can take off the sensitive bits on your bike, and I would keep in mind that this has quick release front and rear. These are 9mm skewers, 100mm hub up front, 135 in the rear. That's very standard, and 9mm skewers, they're not like super big tough through axles like mountain bikes, but they're very common, and the quick release is going to make it easier to change flats, to get service, or to reduce the weight of this bike. It's about 55.7 pounds, a little bit heavier obviously because it's got the plastic fenders, the rack, bigger tires. It's not the heaviest bike out there, but you are adding a little bit of extra weight for the style and for the comfort. Anyway, coming back to those quick release systems, I would make sure you get like a cable lock that goes through both of those wheels. You don't have to worry about someone swiping your seat as much because there's no quick release here, which is a little disappointing for me. I wanted to raise the saddle for this review, and I was like, I don't have time. I went with it low. It makes for a good photo, and it sort of communicates that this is a lower step design. So anyway, the other vulnerable or sensitive item that I always think about is the display panel. And in this case, we're using Purion. In 2016, I think they used Intuvia, which is bigger, it's easier to read, and it's removable, and it has a USB charging port on the side. But this is more affordable, and it's maybe cuter and a little bit simpler. It doesn't give you quite as many readouts, and even though there is a micro USB port, that's only for diagnostics and software upgrades. So, I also noticed that when I'm pushing on these buttons, they don't really, like if you get right on the symbol, it just doesn't always click quite right. It works better if you push towards the top, like towards the screen, and then they click really easily, and it's much more reliable, I guess. So there's a power button on top. I'm gonna press that. The display lights up very quickly. Shows your speed in miles per hour right now. Your trip distance right there on the bottom. If we hold minus, we can cycle to other readouts like, see, I'm doing it right now. Total distance, range. Range is really cool because when I start pressing plus or minus to get more or less power, range communicates how far the bike can go. 80 miles. And again, that's really far. That's a high estimate, but that may be in part because I'm only 135 pounds. I've been pedaling on flat terrain. The bike is full. The battery's completely full right now. And again, the easiest level of assist, it basically just makes this feel more like a regular bike. You're not dealing with the extra weight. It takes that weight off for you. If I arrow up to the next level, Tour, this is the one I use the most. Now the range drops way down to 44 miles. So see, there's a big difference, but that's still great, and it's fairly accurate. Even though below it, you'll see this battery indicator with 5 bars. you know, I kind of wish that was a percentage, because 5 bars, there's a lot of room for imagination there. Like with 20% increments, you could be on the last bar thinking, oh, I got 20%, when really you got 0 left. It's, you know, so that's where range really comes in handy. If I keep arrowing up all the way to turbo, that's the highest level, 32 miles range. So that's actually quite good. And it's a higher range in part because we're dealing with the Bosch Active Line motor. Bosch has a whole range of motors, and this is their more efficient, relaxed, less torquey motor. It offers between 48 and 50 Newton meters of torque. 50 because in this case we have a derailleur system versus a hub, and it can take a bit more force. If you jump up in motors, we get up to like the Bosch Performance Line Cruise. This is the Active Line Cruise, and that one puts out 63 Newton meters of torque. So 50 to 63, you can tell there's a big jump there. And then Bosch also has the Performance Line CX. That's their mountain biking model, and it puts up 75 Newton meters of torque. So you can see there's, you know, the more torque you get, sort of the zippier feel, it's like sportier, it's a little bit louder. I think this is a great choice for a bike like this to really optimize range, but also because of the environments you're probably going to be using it in. These tires are not designed to go off-road. It's still going to be a very capable climber, especially if you shift thoughtfully. So this is a 10-speed Shimano Dior drivetrain, 11 to 36 tooth. 10 speeds is plenty, and you will want to shift in order to get that climbing power or to hit and even exceed the top speed of 20 miles per hour. I love that they've got this little chain cover. In addition to being low step, that's just going to keep your clothing from getting greasy and snagged and stuff, and it looks really nice, and it fits just perfectly. It doesn't rattle a whole lot. Same thing with the fenders. They're mounted right here to the rack, here to the seat stays, and then down there as well. And up here, it's just, you know, they feel pretty solid and they look nice. They're plastic, even though they look silvery, that's just paint. So anyway, coming back to the drivetrain, Shimano Dior, that's like kind of mid-level. It's pretty good stuff. It shifts pretty easily as well. You've got a forward or backwards, sort of a two-way trigger right there. And then you can do up to 3 shifts with that larger one. So the larger one makes it easier. The smaller one gives you harder, faster gearing. And there's a little window here so you can kind of get an idea of how you're riding. Shimano Dior trigger. So that's a nice upgrade. They could have just left this as a lower like Shimano Alivio, and then you wouldn't have had that two-way trigger shifter, and you might not have had the window. That's nice. The component group on this bike is pretty good. You can see that here with the hydraulic brakes as well. 3-finger levers, adjustable reach, so you can actually get some help and bring them in a little bit if you have small hands. There's the little set screw in there that helps you adjust that. Hydraulic tends to be very powerful and easy to actuate. You can, a lot of times with mountain bikes, you can use just 1 finger, and in this case 2 or 3 fingers is going to be plenty. 180 millimeter rotor up front, 160 millimeter rotor up back. So most of your topping power actually happens up front, and having a bigger rotor there makes a lot of sense. As I mentioned before, when you squeeze those brakes, the bike may dive a little bit, and that's just the suspension absorbing some of that weight as it shifts forward on the bike. Notice the internally routed cables here. I love that it has wired in lights. We turned on the display earlier. If I hold the plus button for a couple seconds, there's a little light indicator. Now we've got the Trellick light in the front. Nice silver, matches the rest of the bike. It's got a reflector. And then in the back, we've got a top light view. Again, reflective surface, LED. And it's not going to get blocked by the panniers or bag if you add those. So I love it. It's far enough back. A lot of times, e-bikes and bikes in general will have a light like on the back of the saddle, and then your coat can like cover it up, and then you're out of luck. So I'm a safety nut. I got my helmet on at all times. Sometimes they have helmet lights, backpack lights even. So when you've got a light like this that's pretty much out of the way and it's built right into your bike, you're really in good shape. Just remember to turn that on. And then when you turn the bike off, the lights go off. You don't have to worry about charging them separately or having them be stolen, because they're built right onto the bike. And it's part of what you're paying for here. It's not just beauty. This is a really, really well thought out platform. And while we're over here, I want to mention the kickstand. It's from Hebi. It's adjustable without any tools. So I just twisted that, and it gets longer if you twist this way, like clockwise. And if you twist counterclockwise, it goes up. And then when you stow it, it stays out of the way, doesn't make a whole lot of noise. But let's imagine you're in your garage and you're backing the bike up. See how the crank arm and the pedal, they don't get anywhere near that kickstand. They're not gonna bang up and scratch it and stop the bike. as you would with a center mount kickstand. That's something that's easy to overlook when you're exploring bikes. It's a nice little detail, and CUBE does a great job. You can tell this is a really well thought out bike. I was told by Motostrano that some of the CUBE bikes don't come with pedals. I don't know if that's the case with the Elly Ride here, but they do just have really basic plastic and then alloy cage style pedals. These are just you might want to get your own pedals. Be thoughtful about what you get. If it's wet and it rains a lot where you are, having some grip, some traction, it would be a good thing. Wogo has some BMX pedals that are large. They offer them in a bunch of different colors, but the pins, if you slip off, it can cut your shins, but you're less likely to slip off because of those pins. So it's a trade-off. They're rubberized ones, but I tend to think they're slippery, and for my feet, I like a little bit more surface area. That's something to think about. Right now we have a 15-tooth sprocket chain ring up front. You can't see it because it's behind this plastic guard. And Bosch system is really interesting. That sprocket spins 2.5 revolutions for every single crank arm revolution. So there's like a gearbox in here that's converting your slow pedaling to like faster chainring movement. And I think that empowers the Bosch motor. It gives it a mechanical advantage. Bosch told me that it also helps to increase the chain grab, so there's less likelihood of the chain flopping off. But it makes a little bit more noise, and there is a little bit more friction in there because of the gearbox thing going on. I don't know. It's an interesting design. And again, they have that slap guard there because the chain in the sprocket is so small, the chain gets a lot closer to the chainstay. I realize I'm going like really in depth here. I'm just trying to help you understand. It comes with a 15-tooth sprocket, but I was told by Motostrano they also give you a 17-tooth sprocket. So if you're someone who intends to go a little bit faster and you want or maybe you want a slower cadence, then you can swap out those sprockets. I think it's interesting that they don't give you pedals, but they give you an extra sprocket, because that's kind of an advanced topic for a bike like this. It's a little bit more casual, neighborhood riding setup. So anyway, coming back up to this display, there are a couple other neat tricks that I want to show you. If we hold the minus button, it changes to different readouts. So we just went from, trip to total to range, and then the final one that we hadn't explored yet was just, it tells you what assist level you're in. Turbo, Sport, Tour, Eco, or none. You can ride this bike with no assist, and then this just acts like a little speedometer and lets you power those lights and everything. It's a nice setup. And some people have asked, well, it says miles per hour. How do I get it to kilometers per hour? I think you hold the minus button and then tap power and see it just switch to kilometers per hour. So I'm going to change it back to miles per hour because that's what I'm used to. And then down here at the bottom, there's this walk mode. So if I press walk and then hold plus, yeah, doesn't look like it's working. This might be a software update, or maybe it's disabled. Walk mode's kind of cool because, you are dealing with a 55-pound bike, and letting the motor help you move forward, especially if it's loaded with groceries and you're climbing a hill or something. That's a neat feature that Bosch does offer, but the individual manufacturers can enable or disable it. Check with your shop for sure. And again, I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. I pressed it again, then I hold walk. There it is. It's working. I don't know what the deal was before. So you get the idea. I'm walking along, but see how those crank arms move? If you step right here, and the crank arm hits you, just keep an eye out. You don't want to get your shin scraped up. These do pedal backwards, so if it hits you, it's not going to force into you and scrape you too bad, but it's something to be aware of that you're probably not used to when you normally walk the bike. Those don't move. So anyway, the motor's really advanced. It measures rear wheel speed with that magnet and that sensor, cadence, so that's how quickly you're pedaling, and pedal torque, so that's how hard you're pushing. These are Metropolis cranks with 175 millimeter length. They're a little bit longer, giving you full stride. It's a great setup because it's measuring so many things, and it's measuring them 1,000 times per second. It's just super responsive. Unfortunately, when you ride, you're maybe not going to be able to see that sprocket spinning because of that chain protector, but take my word for it, it's fast, it starts and it stops almost immediately. And it's not the kind of bike where you really have to struggle to get it going. As soon as you start pedaling, that motor is right there helping you, especially if you aero up all the way to turbo mode. So that's what I tend to do, but you do want to be thoughtful about what gear you're in, because if you're in a high gear, you're still going to be struggling, you're going to be pedaling slowly, and the motor's not going to have a mechanical advantage. So you want to shift down to a lower gear. You can see that I'm in the third lowest gear right now, so it's going to be pretty easy for me to start. And then back up here at the display, I can reach over and I can add or remove assist as I ride. Fun little bell. Let's go for it. Stow the kickstand, mount up, give you a just kind of a look. See how my left arm is bent? You know, there's plenty of comfort going on here. Not really having to reach or stretch myself out too much. Let's go off this curb. Nice. There's a little bit of frame flex that I talked about before, but it's not too bad. Probably hear that like electronic whining sound, like wee. That's the motor, and it gets louder as you pedal faster, as your cadence increases. So I might try to shift up here while we're riding this time. Pretty smooth shifting, and that's because the system also has shift detection. So I don't know, I guess I'm not sure how smart it is. I think there are just these little micro gaps as the motor power is being applied that allows shifting to take place more smoothly. It gives it a chance to jump from one chainring to the next in the rear. It's still nice to have. It's something that not all of the systems have. It separates Bosch a little bit, makes them one of the higher end systems. I was gonna do no hands here. I did notice that maybe it was a little bit of speed wobble a moment ago. So it's feeling pretty good. You know, tracking well. I mentioned those big tires before. Let's hit this bump. Yeah, you know, the frame is feeling really good. Yeah, and there's no wobble happening. I was in like 16 to 18 miles per hour right there. Okay guys, you're set up way back at the rear end of the bike. You can see the sprockets, the derailleur, the chain. You can hear the motor. The idea is just to get a sense for how this thing works in the highest level of assist. So remember, we're using the more gentle motor, the more efficient motor from Bosch, but it's still very powerful. If you're someone who's been struggling to keep up with a friend, and maybe you have an injury, or you want to get back out on bikes, but you're intimidated because you live near a hill or it's windy or something, it's just a really great way to do it. This is one of the more balanced bikes. It's one of the easiest to approach, and it's still an excellent climber. So yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that. I personally love e-bikes. I got into them because I had a knee injury, and it's really changed my life. It's enabled me to get out there and have fun and go further and even commute with a bike. And that movement and that connection to my community has really been awesome, and that's why I do this. So I hope this, anyway, back on track. I'll give you some up-close shots. Overall, I'd say it's pretty quiet. You know, I'm impressed with the system. Not only is it comfortable, easy to approach, but at those higher speeds, I wasn't hearing the fenders rattle, and I wasn't too concerned about stability. So I think they nailed it. I like the Elly Ride. Like I said, having bikes that are more niche like this, to me, communicates that more people are getting into e-bikes, or that companies are willing to spend some money to make something that looks a little bit more fun or custom. You know, I ride with my girlfriend, and I know she likes different colors. I've had friends who have bought like laptops specifically because it's a cool color and it just feels neat. So I like that. I'm super excited for this bike. For all the specs, some pictures, some comments, more information, and other step-through bikes that you could compare, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Have fun out there and ride safe. Hey guys, so we're in Motostrano. I wanted to show you last year's model. It's blue with some pink accents. Very similar, still uses the active line, got the chain cover and everything. And this one's set up with some panniers, just as a demonstration. You can see on this side, they're actually hanging on that top rail, but you could put them on the lower rail too. So I think that was just tossed together quickly. Got colorful locks here, just sort of accessorizing. And this is the Bosch Intuvia display that's a little bit larger and is removable. So just wanted to show you that up close. And then what the Purion looks like when it's dark out. You've got that nice soft blue backlight so you can still read it and interact safely.